Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. And feedback is important. So feel free to give comments, questions, concerns, either through email, Substack, X, and of course, fill up those comments, and YouTube is greatly appreciated. And I answer them too. All right, so I'm going to list off briefly some of the audio platforms that I'm on, and I'm looking and working towards the goal of being on all of the podcast platforms. So Spreaker, can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. On Spreaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio. I'm on Amazon Music, just to name a few. All right, so this particular episode focuses in on fear factor. I'm going to give my long-awaited, thoughts and just make commentary about it. And then I'm going to end out and close out with the reasons why this show was created and some, I think, interesting facts. All right, so here we go. All right, so my thoughts about Fear Factor. It's one of those shows that was of the 2000s, early 2000s, and, it went on throughout all these revamps about it. So I think the mid 2000s or so. So anyway, Seth Rogen, Joe Rogan. He was asked this question. He was asked, do you think that being part of Fear Factor is that you're part of the problem? You're part, of course I'm paraphrasing. You're part of the issue with, essentially, with mainstream media being more and more acceptable to watching lowbrow content. And he said, no, I don't think so. He said, he didn't want to be a part of this series, this franchise. He was saying, it's one of those things, and so it's just interesting with that. It goes to the point of, what is the aspect of having this concept with pushing things to the next level? And then the aspect of fear in itself and having all these contests to where it tests your endurance or your ability to get through extreme adversity. And it also says a lot about the aspects of desperation too, and what are the lengths of that? What are the lengths that you're willing to go to win the prize money? And I think that at its core, it taps on a lot of primitive issues that men, the term men, in all umbrella term, men and women face, with this concept of survival of the fittest, and then extreme measures. What are the lengths that you're willing to go to in order to get to the next step? And so, with that said, I find it quite interesting too that with the aspect of, and then I had a friend in college say that with the aspect of reality TV show like The Hills and stuff like that. So it's this concept of simulated reality. So why is it also, you notice that particularly with the contestants, that they're either, you would label them now as fitness influencers, but then they were either, models or fitness models, and with the normal jobs, or they would have the aspirations of being models, or they would have models against models, and things of that nature. So it also gives that element to me, I think, of the aspect that this isn't all real as it's particularly portraying to be. And also, case in point, making careers. So, for instance, The Miz was in it, and, when it went into MTV, it was prevalent with doing that whole aspect of celebrity and things of that nature. So, it's something to consider. And also, I stopped watching all that around, when it was in its early aspect, around the time after Amanda Bynes was more prevalent, and then she got a show sort of around that time. And so this aspect, even before she got a show, I stopped watching all that. So when I saw Quiet on Set, and around the time where Fear Factor was really prevalent, they had these children doing stunts like that it really put themselves in danger. And so that goes along the aspect of, in Hollywood particularly, it's shocking, and it's sad to say too, where is the realm of protection that's not a prevalent thing most of the time when it should be. All right, so with all of this said, I am going to go into more facts about Fear Factor. And first, I'm going to start out with the AI generated response and of the origin of Fear Factor. So, okay, her reason too behind using the AI generated response. So I think it's one of those things that is prevalent to understand and to know that, for better or for worse, but for the better, technology can really improve the aspects of getting down to the bottom of things, of making things better. Whereas you would have to, before, the aspects of pulling all of this information, you have to go out. Even before the modern computer was more prevalent to where everybody could afford it, and it was, and I'm saying from an American point of view, and it was in homes and things of that nature. Even in the aspects of, people who can't afford, it's still, a communal thing where you can get some access to the internet. So anyway, my point is that it helps make things more concise. So my aspects of using the AI generated response to the questions that I'm trying to find, it gets to the point of generalizing what everything is and what everything means in the concept of what you're asking the question. And I think that's quite interesting, and to that aspect of figuring out topics. So, and it's also one of those things too, with checking your source and everything else, about the point of view or perspectives of what is being presented, and is it also, digging deep into that. And that's what the beauty about researching is too, with where are they leaning towards their ideas. Is it more an objectional point of view? Is it more leaning towards a biased point of view, and so forth? And so that's why I think it's also good to find an extra source to get even more in depth about what I'm talking about, to round everything out. All right, so here we go. Okay, I'm going to address the AI generated explanation of the origin or the reasons behind fear factor. And then after this, I am going into the source in the matter about fear factor. Source. All right, so okay, it's pulling right up here. All right, so this is what the AI generated explanation is. It says Fear Factor creation origins. It says Fear Factor was created as a stunt dare game show to capitalize on the popularity of reality TV and competition shows in the early 2000s. The show was adapted from the Dutch series Now or Neverland by Endemol USA and initially hosted by Joe Rogan. The concept involved contestants competing 3 extreme challenges designed to test their physical and mental limits, with the goal of winning a grand prize of $50,000. The show's creators likely aimed to create a thrilling and sensationalized program that would appeal to a wide audience, leveraging the success of CBS, Survivor, and the reality TV show formats. Fear Factor's unique blend of physical and mental challenges combined with its emphasis on gross and unhinged stunts helped to stand out and attract a large following. Over time, the show underwent revivals and reboots with challenges in the hosting and format to appeal to different audiences. The 2017 MTV reboot hosted by Ludacris toned down the gross factor and focused on a younger demographic. And to read off some of the sources, Screen Rant, Looper, and Wikipedia.org. All right, so I'm going to go into a source that goes into the more facts about fear factor. And of course, this source will be provided for you. And the link for this particular episode. So it's by Looper, and it says The Untold Truth of Fear Factor. So when Fear Factor premiered in 2001, its concept was novel, stressed out viewers by asking contestants to do increasingly terrifying or disgusting tasks, like eating live bugs or compelling death-defying stunts for a chance to win $50,000. The NBC series was originally hosted by news radio star and UFC commentator, and of course this needs to be updated because it's not going into his wildly successful podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. So, who revealed in a 2015 interview with Art Bell that he expected the series to be canceled after just a few episodes due to its controversial content. As he told Bell, he took the job primarily to boost up his stand-up comedy career. And I think that's quite interesting because out of his disdain of what they were doing and how they also the lack of care and attention towards doing these types of stunts, he would in itself expose everything for what it is. You know, when you go back and look at these things, it's on time, that comedic timing, those punchlines that he just threw out there with contestants and then saying, well, are you really here for it? Do you really are you just here for, needless to say, are you just here to be on TV? Needless to say, he was boosting his own career. But, that's another point. He it's just one of those things that means to an end. But it's just funny how he's pointing out, you making commentary, being funny without having to work so hard at it. And it's quite interesting. All right, so that he expected the series to be canceled after just a few episodes due to its controversial content. As he told Bell, he took the job primarily to boost up his stand-up comedy career. However, the original Fear Factor aired for 6 seasons until 2006. When it was canceled for the first time, it returned in 2011 again with Rogan hosting, but only survived 1 season before its second cancellation. Finally, Fear Factor returned for a third time on MTV in 2017. This time hosted by the rapper and actor Ludacris. This version of the show lasted for 2 seasons, bringing the overall total to 8. Despite its scattered and relatively short-lived time on air, Fear Factor is perhaps one of the most notorious reality shows ever. Not only did it totally gross out viewers and as contestants signed hefty contracts, it also generated a ton of controversy. Fear Factor's Dutch origin. Although Fear Factor was conceived and produced in the United States, the show was actually based on a Dutch program called Now or Neverland. There isn't much information available on Now or Neverland, and they say it doesn't have a Wikipedia page. With Wikipedia, I don't know, you take that with a grain of salt. It's not really all that much of a trusted source, but it can be at times. So, but a full episode exists on YouTube that indicates the Dutch show aired in the late 90s before making its way to the U.S. with a new name. Now or Neverland was produced by the Dutch-owned company Endemol USA, which signed a distribution deal with NBC for the rebranding version of the show that viewers know today. Obviously, Fear Factor was a much bigger success story than Now or Neverland, but the later ultimately spawned the entire Fear Factor franchise, which was aired in more than 35 countries and been adapted for video games, board games, and more since the U.S. series premiere in 2001. So why did NBC greenlit Fear Factor? Following the smash hit success of CBS reality giant Survivor, which debuted in September of 2000, networks scrambled to greenlight competitive shows, competition shows that could generate the same rating buzz. So in 2001, a slew of non-infamous series debuted in its wake, including NBC's Fear Factor. The original series premiered in June of 2001 with strong ratings, which continued through its first few seasons. Unlike series like Survivor or The Amazing Race, which featured the same group of contestants being eliminated one by one at the end of each episode for a full season, Fear Factor featured a different set of contestants in each episode. And I have my daughter with me. She's not feeling so good. So if I hear a little sniffling or that in the background, it's her. So the original Fear Factor asked 6 individual contestants to complete 3 stunts for a chance to win $50,000. And the original Fear Factor series contestants were asked to complete a skill-based physical stunts, a mentally challenging stunt, and an extreme physical stunt. Any contestant or team who successfully completed the first or second stunt automatically won $25,000, and then they would return with the eliminated contestant for the final stunt and a chance to win an additional $25,000. Any contestant or team who refused to attempt a stunt, underperformed in, or failed to complete a stunt was eliminated from the competition. In the event that no one completed the first or second stunt, everyone returned for the final for a chance to win just $25,000 in total. So, how Fear Factor remixed the original series. So, in the 2011-2012 Fear Factor reboot, which was also hosted by Joe Rogan, took on a different format from the original. 4 teams of 2 people with a pre-existing relationship were asked to compete 2 physical stunts. 1 skills-based and 1 extreme and a gross stunt in between. NBC aired some 2-hour 5-team episodes during this version of the series, which featured some of the most extreme stunts Fear Factor had ever done. So, for instance, in the episode Leeches and Shaved Heads of Tear Gas on My, team spun a wheel which determined if they had to shave their eyebrows and heads to get a tattoo or to be tear gassed for a chance to win prize money and move on to the next stunt. So this, again, it goes into the aspect, what extreme measures are you willing to take to win money? And also, when you look at everything again, relook at it. I was a preteen teen, originally seeing this and then looking at this as an adult. It's like, how did they get away with that? And then what was the thought process of doing something like this? And then you come to a point of, yes, I get that you want to be edgy and bold and do everything to capture all the attention to the show, but at what cost? So in 2017, Fear Factor was rebooted a second time, but it moved to MTV and got a new host. To appeal to a younger audience, rapper and actor Ludacris signed on to host the show, and the gross factor was all but eliminated. 4 teams of the 2 people still competed in 3 challenges to win $50,000, but the stunts and rules differ slightly from the NBC series. Contestants had to complete stunts involving animals, then complete a stunt based on a common fear amongst all of the competitors in the episode. Then do an extreme physical stunt. For the first season, the team who performed best in the first challenge won Fear Vantage, which gave them advantage in the second round. This was eliminated in the second season of the MTV reboot through challenges remained basically the same. Why Fear Factor was canceled. Fear Factor was canceled in 2006 due to low ratings, according to The Hollywood Reporter. After runaway success in its initial seasons, the show failed to compete with Fox American Idol, which aired in the same time slot. THR reports that the original Fear Factor average was 11.5 million viewers between 2001 and 2006. It was also the first reality show to be syndicated on the NBC Universal Horror and Suspense cable network, Chiller. When Fear Factor returned in 2011, it was originally hosted by Joe Rogan, and it was meant to be less gross than the original conception. The concept, that is, instead of conception, concept, the original concept. 2 seasons because of one episode that took things way too far. So TMZ reported in 2012 that NBC had pulled the episode Hee Haw, Hee Haw, where contestants were asked to drink donkey to a PG extent, donkey manhood, okay? And that's way too much. And then the other part of the donkey's behind stuff. So from its air schedule, which was the show's ultimate death, kneeled at its home network. So in 2017, Fear Factor rebooted on MTV, was canceled after 2 seasons, likely due to low ratings. So what happened to the unaired Fear Factor episode? The unaired Fear Factor episode, Hee Haw, was meant to air on January 31st of 2012, according to TMZ. Okay, hold on, there's no more, baby, hold on. So, it said, Fox also reported that Brian Hawker, she and her sister were disappointed by NBC pulling the episode because they wanted to share the experience with their friends and family. Fox also reported that NBC scolded the twins for revealing too much about the unaired Fear Factor episode, citing the undisclosure agreement contestants signed before going on the show. So Fear Factor contestants signed a hefty contract, and the casting application form for MTV's Fear Factor reboot, which was still accessible online of 2021. Contestants interested in being on the show had to agree to a number of stipulations. So they must be 18, U.S. citizens, legal residents, and they also could be employed by entities involving the show or related to anyone who or was employed by them. So Fear Factor contestants couldn't run for office. So what does this mean? A clause in the Fear Factor casting agreement stipulates that candidates for public office were ineligible to compete on the show, and selected cast members could not run for office for or at least one calendar year after the episode airs. Quite interesting. So Fear Factor was dangerous for viewers too. Although Fear Factor contestants agreed not to hold the show liable for injuries they received during filming, viewers signed no such agreements when they sat down to watch the competition show. During the show's original air on NBC, one viewer actually sued the network for $2.5 million, alleging that he became so disoriented during the show's 100th episode that he injured himself as a result. So according to the Associated Press via Cleveland 19 News, 49-year-old part-time paralegal Austin Atkins sued NBC over the season 5 episode in which Fear Factor contestants were asked to eat rats and had been mixed in a blender. So Atkins alleged that his blood pressure rose as a result of watching the stunt. In March of 2005, U.S. District Judge Leslie Wells dismissed the suit, calling it frivolous. She also warned Atkins against appealing. Former Fear Factor host Joe Rogan has gone on the record to state that the show often took big risks. In an episode of his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, he recalled the stunt guys. They're going to, but they just disclosed this later about his podcast. Okay, so he recalled the stunt guys are top of the food chain, but they were doing some sketchy stuff. One of them, we had these people chained to a tree with bungee cords that were attached to a helicopter. They had to figure out the right locks to unlock the bungee cord, the straps that kept them to the tree, and then as soon as they undid the straps, they started shooting out into space, into the center of the gigantic cannon, bouncing under the helicopter. I remember thinking we could do this 1,000 times and someone's gonna die. And it might be the next one. We got lucky. I really honestly 100% feel like we got lucky. Regarding the now infamous show with the donkey manhood of eating that, Rogan said on Your Mama's House podcast via Bro Bible, so hard to imagine that this was a real show, that the episode killed it. Fear Factor led to some deaths. No one ever died. So that's kind of misleading. Okay, so what are they actually saying? So what it is, let me just read it for what it is. No one ever died on the U.S. version of Fear Factor despite death-defying stunts and intense allergic reactions. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for events that arose from the show's popularity. Oh, okay. So according to IOL, in 2005, Thai pop star Boon, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, Brakun Boon Diamond was just 22 years old and died from a massive brain injury after being hit in the head with a 44-pound barrel during a Fear Factor event at the Bangkok International Trade and Exhibition Center. Wow, that's very sad. So, it's one of those things. People are always looking to push it to the next level, and then if you keep poking, it's gonna get a hefty cost. Hold on, sweetheart. Hold on. You just had milk. Just hold on just a minute. And so, I'm talking about now the other aspects of the games and everything else. So 3 years after Fear Factor debuted on NBC, a video game adaptation was released for the Game Boy Advance. Fear Factor Unlimited, developed by DC Studios and published by Hip Interactive, allowed gamers to play as a man or a woman and gave some customizations options for skin colors. The characters had 4 statistic nerve, steadiness, stomach, and stamina. And players had to navigate 12 minigames based on stunts from the show. Ports for PlayStation 2 and Xbox were planned for 2005, but were canceled after the game was widely panned by players and critics alike. Despite the video game's poor reception, and board game publisher Masterpiece released Fear Factor game in 2005, which featured a much less involved adaptation of the show. Players would roll a dice to match the correct color combination on a stunt card faster than their opponents, then smash a spider to win the round and move ahead. The first player to make it from the start space to the 50,000 winner space won the game. The cards featured images straight from the show, but stunts were actually performed. Players simply read descriptions from the cards. In addition to game adaptation, Fear Factor also had book spin-offs, including the Fear Factor Cookbook, the Fear Factor Mad Libs, and novelty candies made by Brand New Candy LLC. Universal Studios Florida and Universal Studios Hollywood opened the theme park show Fear Factor Live in 2005, though the Hollywood version was shut down in 2008. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harvard Light. I'd like to know what you all think about the concept of Fear Factor and the aspect of what it brought to society. So either reach me through email, Substack, and of course fill up those comments and YouTube. It would be greatly appreciated. All right, tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye.